Hi, I am Claire, and this is a horse ranch I have designed based off of a book. This book is called Ranger's Apprentice, and they don't really take a whole bunch of time in the horse ranch, but I still thought it would be fun to make a horse ranch just with the new pack I recently got. I was trying to stay strong and wait for it to go on sale, but I was getting kind of bored of the items I currently have, and I wanted to kind of freshen up my space. So this horse ranch is for a character in the book called Old Bob, who is the probably the best ranger horse trainer. He's the only horse trainer we hear about, and so we are just going to be designing this house based off of the first book. I don't want to spoil too much, but the first book, it's just him, and then there's a prequel series, and then he has a family, and so I would probably design a house for like his kids and stuff, have like a room for them, but this is just off of the first book, and so we are starting off in the kitchen, which is the first room you walk into. I was measuring to be kind of like a single guy. Like I said, I'm just doing this off of the first book, and so we are just going to be adding some cabinets, and I wanted it to kind of feel kind of like rough, just because it's like only like one guy, and it says in the book that they're like he like thinks he's a horse sometimes, and so we are just going to be adding some kitchen decorations and going to be just making it feel very rough. And this book does take place in like the medieval time period, and so there's not like a TV. There are a few bookshelves here and there I added, but I tried to make things look off the grid. I don't know if everything is off the grid. I do know that there is a filter. I should have used that when I was designing this, but I also had like a idea I wanted this house to look like, and so we are just going to be adding a broom because there's not vacuums, and I also don't have the vacuum kit, and so we are now just going to be going into the living space, and I really want to add a fireplace because there's not really like air conditioning or heating in medieval times, and so like a fireplace is the only source, and so we are just going to be adding some rocking chairs. I thought that this would be a cool place for like Old Bob and the apprentice master to just kind of be sitting, observing the apprentice, working with the horse. And so now we're back inside and going to be adding some seating. I only have one sofa, and it honestly doesn't look that comfortable. I could have added two, but I really wanted to add a little cot because in the book it says that the apprentice master was slept on the floor in the living space, and so I wanted to keep true to that, and so I added a cot. I'm also really glad that the Horse Ranch pack came with cots and sleeping bags. I feel like that's really cool, and it kind of helps with a rustic camping theme in and of itself. And so we are just going to be adding a table, and I feel like the Horse Ranch table was just too detailed, and so I go for the laundry day one, and I do also have the broom from the laundry day, and so we are now just trying to figure out how many chairs to add around the table. I end up going for free chairs, and that just was to keep it simple, and I thought it would just be like a ranger master, ranger apprentice, and Old Bob, and I do realize that might be confusing for some of you who aren't really into Ranger's Apprentice or haven't heard of Ranger's Apprentice before, and are thinking wait, there is already a townie named Bob and he already has like a place, but this is what I was picturing, and I actually was thinking of building this in the world that came with cottage living, because that's kind of more foresty. That's kind of where I imagine like Holt and Will would be, but this is really like more of like the horse feel. Has like a horse training center off of this property, and so I felt like this would be a better area for old Bob. And so now we are just going to be adding a bookshelf. Like I said earlier, there's no TV or computer, so there is just really only bookshelves to be entertained by, and I feel like that keeps with the medieval theme. And I really like how I added this bookend from Cottage Living with the Little Bunnies. I have them in a brown tone to kind of make it look like maybe Bob like carved them himself, did some hand carving on the side. And so now we are just going to be adding some lights just to make it feel a little less dark, and also going to be adding some pictures. I feel like it's kind of hard to like find pictures for Bob, but I do like this one that looks like the map, and it could be like the map of Araluen, the area that this story takes place. And so here is a cot that I thought the Ranger Master would be on, and so we are just going to be getting rid of that chair. And I mean, you can obviously add it back, but I wanted to make sure there was a space for the Ranger Master to be. And now we are just going to be going into old Bob's room. And I was trying to keep this area pretty simple just because he spends so much time working with the horses. He probably does have, probably it's like the bedroom's kind of like an afterthought in a way in his world. And so we are just going to be adding a dresser. I wanted to go for a whitewashed type of look just because there's so much dark wood in this room, and just trying to find a good arrangement for the furniture. And I do add some side tables so the room doesn't look completely empty, and so we just kind of add it into the dark swatch to make the bed pop. And just going to be adding another rug from Laundry Day just to kind of keep it cohesive and to just keep it with the theme. And I feel like these rugs kind of look more home-woven, and so we are just going to be figuring out just some other things to add here and there, but this room is pretty much done. I do add a little horse tapestry, and I realized that the horse tapestry, it's like it like connects with each other. If you like put it like side by side, it looks like the horses are running from one tapestry to another, and I thought that was really cool. And if you haven't read the Ranger's Apprentice series, I would totally recommend. It is a pretty long series, and there's like spin-offs, like I said, and there's a prequel and a sequel and a completely different series that like takes place in the same world, but like doesn't like focus on these ranger characters. And so if you need a book to read, I would definitely go check out John Flanagan. And so we are just going to be adding some more pictures, more horse themed pictures. I thought this one with the goats was really cute, and now we are just going to be adding that tapestry that I was talking about. And I did do a build, like just a room prior to this, so I kind of like knew what I wanted to do. I kind of felt like this video, I filmed it pretty fast, and I kind of feel like it's because I had some ideas of what to do already with doing a room prior to this. And so here's that tapestry where it looks like the horses are running from one to another of the tapestry. And so we are just going to be adding a plant. I end up putting this in the dining room just to have something kind of fresh in that area. And I do love how this house came with shutters, although love I didn't like how it looked on this house. Like I said, I wanted it to go a little bit rough because in the first book you learn that he's alone, and so like shutters probably wouldn't be that big of a deal for him. Although apparently he does have a wife and kids in the prequel, and so I hope I'm not spoiling too much for you guys. And we are just going to be going into the outhouse, and first thing I do was add flooring because I forgot to do that before I recorded, and so we are just going to be adding a shower and a tub. One, because I had space. Two, you're on a horse all day, you probably would want to give your legs a little bit of a break, so maybe you would want a bath over a shower. And I saw this outhouse and I couldn't not use it. Like, this would be so perfect. For some reason, I couldn't stop myself from not using this outhouse, and it kind of gives some more separation from the shower area. Like I said, this is like supposed to be like a house in the medieval period, and things weren't the cleanest back then, and so to help my own sanity, I had to put a separate area for the toilet, and so we are just going to be adding just a few bushes. And I do add a potty plant on this lot as well, so you have lots of options to use the toilet. And now we are just going to be going back into the actual outhouse building with the tub, and I do also add a sink. I'm not fully sure if all these items are off the grid, but again, I had this like vision, like, okay, I have the idea I want to do, and I'll eventually do an off the grid house, but I didn't really want to today, and so we are just going to be going and adding some horse jumps. And I really like how these horse jumps look more homemade, more kind of on the rough side. And I also use these barrels because I'm like, oh, that could be like some like easy resource to help train the horses. And so I really would like to see if we could have like a Renaissance fair. I feel like that'd be really cool to get some like Renaissance, like medieval items in the game without like having to like totally like go into like a medieval period. Just have a Renaissance fair. It'd be like a city festival or like other like events that happen in the game. And I also have not actually played with horses, so I don't totally know what they need, and so I added maybe one too many of these horse like feeding stalls and water things. Although if you're training horses a lot, you probably want them to be well fed and watered, and so I didn't really think that was like too weird to add so many. And we are now going to be going into the actual barn area. I kind of thought the horse like bed things were in the like human sim beds, but nope, they were out in the little coop thing you can see on the screen. And I do also add a bunch of these like grasses that like grow, and then your horses can eat them, you can harvest them. Again, I was fully sure what I wanted, and so I'm like, oh sure, this looks good, they can like graze on this grass. And so I do also add some hay on the outside of these little stalls. I also don't really know if they needed doors, and so I just didn't add them. I honestly don't know what horses do and don't need. I've only been a horse one time, and that was a very bad experience. I realized I was allergic to horses, and so I can live my horse dreams out in The Sims, luckily. But I hope all you horse professionals are a little bit gentle on me with that. And so again, we're just adding some more hay and going to be going and adding just like cleaning supplies. I just kind of saw items and like, oh, that would work right here. And so we are just going to be making sure I don't forget anything or I could add anything else. And I do find these saddles, and I thought I was pretty smart to add in this area with it being a barn and such. And so we are just going to be adding one for each stall, although the third one does end up going upstairs into a little loft area. And so we are just going to make sure I didn't forget anything, make sure I couldn't add another like feeding trough anywhere. And so we are just going to now be going onto the loft area, and I wanted there to be a loft just for extra supplies and because it keeps true to the first book where it says that Will like sleeps up here for the night. And so I have another little cot, and if you're not like wanting to like play like how I've designed this for like a like people that are just coming and going, this could be like a horse, like a ranch hand area. And so we are just going to be adding a little dresser, and I thought it looked really cool to have this hay underneath the bed, like the bed is made out of this hay. And so we are just going to be going and adding just a few more things. I didn't want to add like wine, or I know we can like make like nectar, but I didn't really want to add that since like this is where like apprentices would be staying. And so we are just going to be adding another saddle, like I said, and just going to be adding just kind of more like storage themed items. And so now we are just going to be changing the colors and going to also be adding some curtains up here just to keep out that like wind and storms and stuff like that. And so we are just going to be making sure I don't miss anything. This is a new pack for me, and so I'm like, oh, I can't miss anything because like it's a good opportunity to add stuff. And going to be getting close to the end of this video. Please make sure to hit that like and subscribe button if you want to play in this house. You can find it on the Sims 4 gallery. All the information will be down in the description. Also, make sure to follow me over on Instagram, and I hope to see you all next week for another Sims 4 video. Comment down below if you have any build ideas for me. Bye!